This is London, but coming to you, of course, all over the world, thanks to the wonders of the internet and SputnikNews.com. We're also on FM in the Washington, D.C. area of the United States of America. 105.5 are the magic numbers there. Also on AM across America from sea to shining sea. But uniquely, this is a radio show with pictures, and many of you, maybe most of you, are watching as well as listening. And if you are on Facebook, then please share it with all of your followers, all of your friends and connections on that platform, so we can get back up to that magic number of 1 million viewers plus listeners, but we can't count those. But we did get 1.15 million viewers on episode 29. And having tasted it, having been to the mountaintop, I'm determined that we get back up there again. So please share if you're watching on my Facebook page, on RT's many Facebook pages. Please share with all of your friends. You can also watch on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, on RT's YouTube channel. You can also watch on my Twitter feed, as thousands of you are now doing. Now, it's stormy weather outside, that's for sure. Although, having just spent the last 6 days in Russia, where not a drop of snow or ice lasts for a second on the roads or the pavements, is swept, shoveled, salted, sanded away, and nothing comes to a halt, it's a bit surprising to be told that half of my staff this evening haven't made it into work because of transport difficulties. Both of the train lines from Glasgow and Edinburgh to London cancelled because of the weather. The BBC One, a £5 billion a year business, off air because of a storm. Makes you wonder how the Russians can do it and we cannot. Although that's true in more ways than one, and I'll come back to those issues in a minute. I want to begin with the breaking and extraordinary news coming out of the Irish Republic, where little Leo Varadkar, the darling of Brussels, the foghorn, the mouthpiece of the European Union, has lost the general election and may even now, as I said earlier, be on a plane to Brussels to a well-padded political and financial exile. Sinn Féin, once derided as the political wing of the IRA, so toxic that their leader could not be heard on British television. His voice had to be substituted by an actor. It was good work, actually, for the Actors' Union back in the day. But Mrs. Thatcher would not give them the oxygen of publicity. Well, they didn't need it. They were kept off the Irish television leaders' debates, even though they were up there in the mix, in the polls. But they have emerged as top dog. We'll be talking to Kevin Marr, a very considerable expert and long-standing guest of the mother of all talk shows, about that. We'll be asking him whether Sinn Féin can now form a government, what kind of government that would be, and what that will mean on the issue of the border, on the issue of Irish reunification. I make no apology for saying that I have myself supported Sinn Féin all of my life. So if I seem extra pumped this evening, it's because I wasn't quite expecting a result like this. But it does go to show that small parties can become big parties, and big parties can become small parties, and very quickly indeed. The Labour Party, for example, looks determined to become a small party. It's already 80 seats down in Parliament and looks certain, according to the bookies, 10-1 on at the bookies, to pick as its next leader a knight of the realm and the man responsible for the policy shift which destroyed the Red Wall, drove Labour into exile in the metropolitan areas and cost them the election. You might call that masochism. I certainly would. But it's partly the fault of the Corbynites that came up with an alternative candidate who just doesn't cut it. And that is increasingly obvious with every day. Even in Jeremy Corbyn's own constituency, Labour Party, they picked Keir Starmer over Rebecca Long-Bailey. So a lot of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Labour members are going to have to face a difficult decision. Is it business as usual under Sir Keir, the champion of the EU, of NATO, of the whole Tony Blair agenda? Or are they going to be looking for somewhere else? Or perhaps leaving politics altogether? It's a pretty sad end, isn't it, to the not even 5 years of the Jeremy Corbyn era. And what a pity, too, that Corbyn fell just as Bernie Sanders was rising. Bernie Sanders now is bang dead on to be the Democratic Party's candidate in the November election in the United States, as exclusively predicted here by me long ago, long before anyone in the mainstream was prepared to give it house room. It's amazing how often I'm right. In fact, if I ever write another memoir, it will be called I Was Right About Everything. And I was right about Bernie. He is the only man that can defeat Donald Trump, and he is going to be the winner of this primary contest. Unless, of course, they cheat him. Unless, of course, they stop him by undemocratic, unorthodox means. And that, of course, cannot be ruled out, especially in the wake of the farce in Iowa, where in a caucus process, they invented an app. Now, for those of you who don't know what a caucus process is, you book a hall and you ask people to stand in different places in the hall, and you count their heads, and you know who's won. Why you need an app for that is entirely beyond me. You only need someone that can count heads and an old-fashioned telephone to ring the result in to the headquarters, and somebody with a pencil and paper at the other end. But now, a week after the event, we still do not have the final result in Iowa. And that's because Bernie Sanders won. And they wanted to stop the momentum from that win, taking him to a landslide victory, perhaps, in New Hampshire this week. And we'll be talking to Garland Nixon, a good friend of ours from Sputnik in the United States, who knows a thing or two about American politics and Bernie Sanders. We'll be talking to him in the course of the show about what happened in Iowa, what's likely to happen in New Hampshire, and what are the options open to the political orthodoxy, the political establishment in the United States to stop Bernie. And anybody who knows anything about the United States knows that those options are quite wide-ranging. And we'll be talking about China. I've just come back, as I said, from Russia. I've been on 4 airplanes in the last few days. I've got to tell you that there is something like panic struck in the hearts of all kinds of people when they see someone who looks like they might be Chinese. Someone like my wife, someone like my children. People are wearing masks. People are shying away from other people because they fear the coronavirus. China has moved mountains to try and stop this coronavirus, to try and restrict it. But there are so many people in China and so many Chinese people in the world that it's not proving easy to restrict its spread. A lot of people have now died, far more have survived, but have had the virus, have tested positive for the virus, now in virtually every country in the world. Cruise ships in the United States this week being pulled over into harbour and sick people being carried off them. It's going to do wonders for the cruise ship business over the rest of the winter and the spring, I can tell you. It is, of course, still a moot point of what this coronavirus is, how it struck China in the way that it did. It's a moot point whether China could have handled it better. There are people who say that the attempt to stop the panic, the cover-up, is often worse than the actual problem itself. I'll be discussing that with a distinguished guest from China also later in the show. We'll be talking about British politics, Irish politics, American politics, politics everywhere in the world. We'll be talking even about heroes, because tonight we begin the long-awaited induction of the first candidate into the mother of all talk shows Hall of Fame. We've even got a beautiful new graphic. And tell me if you like the new look. I'm told I'm looking purple. Purple, that'll suit me. Tell me what you think of that. We'll be inducting the first of our heroes into the Hall of Fame. That nomination is mine. I'll be making that nomination, but you can make subsequent nominations. Just let us know, preferably by email, but also by tweet, by any other means, who you think should be in our Hall of Fame, and give reasons why. And we'll make an adjudication during each week as to who the next inductee will be. In parallel, from next week, there'll be a wall of shame, and you equally can do the nominating for that. Now, we've got a poll. Poll number 1 is this: following Sinn Féin's success, will there be a united Ireland in A, 10 years, B, 20 years, C, never? You can vote now on my Twitter feed. I think 10 years is a bit of an exaggeration, actually. I think that the reunification of Ireland will happen more quickly than that, and will happen with the kind of sweep that the reunification of Germany happened. I think it will be a moment in time which will sweep away the border, sweep away the partition of that small island. And I wanted to take 3 or 4 minutes just to educate those who perhaps have not had my background as a child of Irish immigrants, have not paid the closest attention, shall we say, to how we got to a stage where a tiny island was partitioned into 2 countries in the first place. The Irish people were conquered by the Scots, first of all, and then by the English, and then by Scotland and Ireland together as the British Empire many centuries ago. The Scots were there first in the 17th century, before the Union, before Britain was ever invented. They conquered a part of the north of Ireland. Soon, Britain would conquer all of Ireland and would subjugate it as a colonial territory, exactly as all the other colonial territories, from India through Africa and the Arab Middle East and so on. Ireland was a colony of Great Britain. The Irish people never accepted it. From centuries, successive generations produced resistance, upheavals, uprisings, revolutions, bloody repression. Everything that could be done by an occupied people was done by the Irish people, and everything that could be done by the colonizer to repress them was done, up to and including mass murder, famine, and mass immigration and deportation to the colonies of those who stood against the British occupation. In 1916, a great blow was struck against the British Empire on Easter weekend of 1916 in Dublin, in the General Post Office, when an uprising took control of a part of Dublin, was ruthlessly repressed, its leaders cruelly executed, including the great James Connolly, executed whilst tied to a chair because he could not stand up on account of his wounds. The leaders of the Irish uprising, the rebellion in 1916, were cruelly dispatched. The uprising was defeated. But just like the Tet Offensive in Vietnam in 1968, that which was a military failure was a political success, because within a few short years, the Irish people as a whole had voted for Irish independence and unity, voted for a party called Sinn Féin. At that point, the British decided that if most of Ireland could not be held onto, if Ireland's 4 green fields could not continue to be occupied, then one of those green fields would remain in bondage. And that's how we got somewhere called capital N, Northern, capital I, Ireland. It was gerrymandered in a way that they thought would ensure a pro-British majority would live there forever and keep that small part of Ireland, 6 counties out of 32 counties, as part of the United Kingdom. But they didn't account for several things, one of them inexplicable. As soon to be the father of my 6th child, I've got to tell you, we produce, by the grace of God, a lot of children. And the population demographic has been tilting dramatically in the 6 counties towards an Irish majority, towards a nationalist majority, a majority for reuniting the country. They didn't take account of the fact that many educated, graduate, achieving people from the unionist population in the 6 counties would not prefer in the long run to live in such abnormal, unusual, rigged and sectarian situation, and would leave and go and live in England, go and live elsewhere. They did not take account of the fact that educated, intelligent members of the unionist population would one day conclude, not least because of the issue of the European Union, that if I'm to remain in the European Union, well, I'll have to reunify the island of Ireland, and thus everyone can be satisfied. They did not take account of the march of history. Now, reunification is ineluctable, unstoppable, and I think will be along much sooner than 10 years. But you can vote A, 10 years, B, 20 years, C, never. 52% of you say 10 years so far, 12% of you say 20 years, and 36% of you say never. If you want to argue the toss with me on that one, you're welcome. It's going to be the mother of all talk shows.